This Todd-versation is brought to you in part by Calavo Growers, the family of fresh.
Hey, everybody. How are you? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Excited to have my guest with me hanging out today. We've been going back and forth talking about stuff. We finally made some time for each other to hang out a little bit. I'm excited to talk about what's going on at the International Fresh Produce Association, kind of give everybody a little 411, what's going on, what George is all about, what he's been doing. This should be a fun conversation. And again, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it. So everybody get it up for the director. Love your title, dude. I can't wait to talk about this. I love your title. For the director of production, supply chain, environmental policy, keeper of the keys, know where the bodies are. I don't even, how many more things are in your title, dude? I don't even know. It's a bunch of work.
First of his name.
Work? Yeah. When do you not work all day? Anyways, welcome, George Szczepanski. Come, dude, welcome for being here, man. I appreciate you.
Man, I'm glad to be here.
Dude, first, we got to talk about your last name because we got to come together on this, right? Because I got Linsky and you got your last name, and my original last name that I found out through, the kind of the family history lesson that we went through was actually Cheslinsky, right? With an I at the end. And when they came over to this country, when the greats came over here, they dropped the Ches and they dropped the I and replaced it with the Y because they wanted to kind of fit into this country and make a life for themselves, which is really interesting. But your family stayed right in the paint. You guys didn't deviate anywhere on that bad boy.
We kept it. We kept the zebra cat zebra, the ZCZ. I've got a 4-year-old daughter. She thinks her last name is Pansky. She's due for such a rude surprise when she catches up to writing things out. But good company at IFPA with Max Splitsky, our web guy Jim Rachinsky. So we've got a squad in the office.
Well, and I'll say it because I'm Polish and I can say it. Right? I don't have any problem. Do you know why Polacks end their name in SKI?
What's that?
Because they can't spell toboggan. Okay, I'm done.
I'm going to send that one to my dad, who in college was DJ Ski.
Yeah, absolutely. You may borrow that. Dude, let's get into this a little bit. Give everybody a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, just tell everybody kind of what your journey and your bio is a little bit to hanging out with me today.
Oh, man. Well, it's kind of crazy for me to think that it's a long journey already. In college at St. Joe's, I was an intern for New Jersey Department of Agriculture for the Jersey Fresh program. And that really got me into the industry, and people right from the get were telling me, produce industry, you get in, you're going to be hooked. They were right. That first time that I kind of put my toe in the water, a couple of months later after that ended, I was at the first student program at Fresh Summit, the first Career Pathways program.
Wow.
I'm the oldest Career Pathways alum, but always try and show some love to that gang. After college, sold grapes for a few years with an outfit on the East Coast called Jack Vandenberg that taught me what it's really like to show up. I worked at Holt Terminal in Gloucester, and my first day they were like, look, some nights we're going to fumigate the grapes and you got to leave by 8 p.m. And I thought, why would I work until 8 p.m.? So that's when I really got into the produce industry. Did a Mexican grape deal and thought, I'm going to take a break from this. Mexican grape deal, another thing that just changed my life, working in Nogales. Decided to go to the University of Delaware and get another degree. Came in and said, oh man, I'm right down the street from, there's my East Coast showing, straight down the street from PMA. I'll get a job there. I'll work for a couple of years, meet everybody in the industry, and 12 years later, it's been a great place to work. So now when I started, I sold the spaces at our trade show. So I'm sure we'll get into it later, but so excited to be at the big show again so soon. It's the jump off for the industry, but doing that, getting into the trade show part of things, I did trade show for a while. I was business development, recruiting new members. I worked on the membership team, but years ago, I told Kathy, when I feel the most energized and the most jazzed about our work and about the industry, it's when I'm talking about the issues, talking about government relations. And we just, there wasn't more roles to do that at PMA. And when the new org was announced, Kathy pulled me and said, we're ready to give you a shot. We've got, room on the roster. So it's been a huge change. This is been and you saw that job title encompasses a lot. Part of why I'm here today is because a lot of where my time is, the majority where my time is spent thinking about organics and the way IFPA steps it up for organics. So
yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about, because again,
yeah.
you got production, supply chain, and environmental policy in your title. I mean, literally, that's an all-day job, 7 days a week, 8 days a week, whatever you want to say. There's a lot there. So talk a little bit about your roles and responsibility underneath that, just so people get some perspective of, how full your plate is.
Absolutely. Well, and I'm a registered lobbyist now, which is part of that government relations. When you look
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Did they teach you do you get the secret handshake too?
Oh yeah. I mean, I'll show you
Yeah,
later.
don't worry about it.
When you look at our lobbyists, John Hawley is working on the labor and immigration and workforce piece. Molly Van Loo is just exceptional at locking down our nutrition policy. So a lot of what's left where I'm filling in the gaps beyond that organics piece is looking at grower concerns and where we can weigh in on the production side of things. A lot of other turning wheels and supply chain is my boss, Rebecca Adcock, usually refers to supply chain the way that infrastructure was talked about, a couple of years ago. When is it infrastructure week? Supply chain is everything right now.
Yeah.
So that's touching everything. I think everybody in the team has their hands on that. But really, when I'm thinking about where I can add value for this squad, it's about working with the growers directly. A lot, like I said, a lot of that time is dedicated to organics because IPA is trying to step it up in a way that our legacy associations, that the industry hasn't really seen associations represent organics in the past. So that includes legislative work, working with Congress when there's a bill to be talked about, a lot of time getting to know who's making decisions from USDA, and a lot of time working with our organics committee, who is really the driving force in where we take our strategy with regard to organics and how we craft messaging when we're talking out to our members, but especially when we're going back to USDA, to the National Organic Program, to the NOSB, and representing the voice of our collective and bringing the weight of that to those conversations. They're the people that are providing input as our first stop to say, here's what we need as a produce industry, and here's how we've got to show up in these conversations differently from other groups that don't have the same supply chain and production concerns that we do in organic fresh produce. That's a little different.
Yeah, well, look, the organic thing is it's an interesting job ahead of you, right? Because you're right. You're dealing with an industry that is splintered. You're dealing with an industry that's deeply divided in a lot of issues. There's folks in this industry that want to see the industry go backwards, scale down, become more elitist. There's a fraction that want to see the industry grow, and how are we going to feed 9.5 billion people better food? It's an interesting perspective for you guys because you're kind of, you're on both sides of the business because of who you guys represent. So when you think about issues in the category, and we'll just stick on the organic thing for a bit because we're on it, when you guys look at issues from your perspective, what's front and center that, within your group that you think is incredibly important?
Right now it's exciting in the GR space that things turn pretty quickly. And I'm thinking a lot about how we're interacting with USDA, but I think two broad headings where we're really spending a lot of time. The USDA this summer announced so much funding for the framework to transform the food industry, and a lot of that, big chunk, $300 million, nothing to sneeze at, for organic transition initiative funding. Digging in on that funding, understanding where it's going to go, how it's going to be used, and how our members can utilize it is important. It's what really caught me by surprise, or really was just a shocking statistic when that came out. And USDA put it front and center that in the past 15 years, the number of farms applying to transition to organic has decreased 70%. And that blew me away. And when you talked a little bit about how we have a unique perspective, I always appreciate the fact that we represent the supply chain through from the producer to the retailer. That means part of it is we want to see organics and grocery store shelves. We're not just farmers market sized distribution. We need to look at scale distribution. And I think for the people that believe in the mission of organics and in what it can do for our farming system, the way that we treat the environment as a part of that, bringing that to scale has got to be a good thing. And I know we walk into conversations about that, and there are times where I feel like we've got a strike against us for representing major broad scale agriculture. I think that that's got to be part of the solution. That's not the issue with organics.
Thanks for joining the Todd-versation. And now, a word from our sponsor.
Hi, this is Nelia Alamo at Calavo. Thanks for listening to Todd-versations. At Calavo, we are the family of fresh. For almost 100 years, our passion has been bringing delicious and nutritious food to your table. From tasty, wholesome produce to our freshly prepared foods, Calavo is a global leader in the finest quality produce and a pioneer of healthy, fresh-cut fruits, vegetables, and prepared foods. Whether it's our farm-fresh avocados, tomatoes, Hawaiian papayas, or chef-inspired solutions including fresh-cut fruits, veggies, guacamole, and much more, Calavo takes pride in delivering our fabulously fresh products every day. It's our promise from our foodie family to yours. Check us out at calavo.com and learn why we are excited about your fresh possibilities ahead.
Well, dude, I don't disagree. And I mean, I think this us versus them mentality that we live in this world now, right? It's so tribal. It's so you either believe in what I believe in, or I can't even look at you in the face any longer. It's just such bullshit. I mean, it doesn't win the day. And to your point, there's so much value that agriculture can bring to make positive changes back to this planet. And let's be honest, there's a lot that agriculture has done to screw it up too. So let's not give everybody a pat on the back, but there's things we have to change, right? And I think that when we talk about climate, we talk about energy, we talk about carbon, we talk about feeding people. And I firmly believe that there's no reason why organic can't feed the planet, right? 100%, right? It got us here. If you go back in time, they weren't using Roundup back in time, right? I mean, 200 years ago, everything was organically grown, right? But the country scaled through that methodology. So now it's just a matter of trying to harness that, get our arms around it. But I think, to your point, driving organic consumption is incredibly important. Driving fruit and vegetable consumption. I always believe driving consumption is let's get people to eat an apple. And my job and my role is to get people to eat the organic one, right? But I want you to eat the apple first. And I think that's really important. I know that that's a lot of, I believe, probably what you guys believe as well, right? Because any consumption forward is positive. But we do have an issue where we've got to come together and we've got to make sure that we are looking forward with our farming methodology and the people that are in charge. To your point, there's a lot of things brewing around through the USDA and the NOP and the NOSB that make some sense. There's some things that don't make some sense. And I think these conversations need to be brought to the forefront. So I appreciate, you guys stepping up in a bigger role and trying to embrace this. I think it's important. I think the timing is right. I go back to what I said about the splintered mentality that this industry has. It's incredibly dangerous. And it's becoming more and more. You take a look at what's happening with ag technology. It's going to start to splinter even more now with some of the things that you're reading and seeing. It's going to be an interesting time to watch. Thinking about all this and sitting here on my soapbox, spouting off a touch. But what do you think, folks really need to be mindful of about organics and in the process that we work under? I mean, I touched on the NOSB a little bit, but in regards to that, what do you think people need to be be thinking about?
Well, it depends on who the people are in that conversation. But I'd say to our members, one of the messages that I want to bring in, and like I said, I've been in produce for 15 or maybe closer to 20 years. Let's see. But organics hasn't always been, my top focus in that time. And as I'm really taking out the magnifying glass and reading the old technical reports and digging in on the policy, what I would want to tell our members and let people know is that, you've got to tell your story, but also speak to the receiver. And I think that when we get into these conversations and we find ourselves in that tribalism scenario, there's a lot of ways that we can can come in and be pushy and use that terminology that's going to set somebody up and hear me as the other, and they're just going to tune out.
Right.
I'm a pretty positive person. I'm still very proud of my Camden Catholic High School class optimist notation. What's that, superlative?
Yeah.
I want to bring. I think we're doing incredible things. I think this industry is doing great things. I don't like the as an individual, but I think that this parlays into what the association does with organics. Don't like seeing things just getting ruled out and pushed out in the name of dogmatism and narrowing the funnel, when I think this food system needs and deserves a really broad array of techniques and people to try and fail and try and succeed so we can see what's working. Organics has a great history of that. And I had an excellent conversation with an organic farmer that we're just doing more with at the association level now. And she told me about transitioning her father's farm to organic. And this is what organic farming is, and what farming is: seeing what's working better on one field as to the other and saying, hey, that's working on the organic field, I'm going to put it on my conventional fields too. It's organic versus conventional isn't the be all and end all. It's about taking what we've learned, how we can do better, and applying it where it needs to go. I think when there's just wins to be had, and we can't count out our wins if they're not fitting into a square box.
Well, 100% agree. I mean, you can take a look, and we can get into it a little bit. I mean, you take a look at some of the stuff that's coming out that the industry is presenting back to the trade. When you think about climate smart and reading through some of the documentation that's coming out, from the NOSB on climate smart, right? There's not one mention in their climate smart document about water. And it's such a disconnect from the reality of what's happening. It's mind-blowing to me to think that that's not on the table in conversation with them, as well as talking about alternative agriculture. Not one mention of greenhouse agriculture in their document, which again is really, I think, so short-minded. And I think it just does us no good, because it becomes, we're isolating people. You've got a whole group of people that are farming, producing good food. And I think we have to be mindful of that, right? At the end of the day, yes, we want to save the planet. Yes, we want to reduce resources. I get all that. And I'm not absolutely 100. I am 100% behind all that, but we still have to feed people, right? That's the ultimate goal, is getting people better food, safer, cleaner food that makes a difference to this planet. And I think we're losing track of that in a lot of ways. So I think it's going to be very important that we get to participate in the process. That's the beauty of this, right? People can participate. People can speak at these meetings. People can say, I think this is bullshit. I think this is great. I commend you for this. Why did you do that? It's terribly important. I mean, again, I look at that document and think, you didn't talk about water. That is such a disconnect with the reality of climate. It's shocking to me in some ways. So I'm glad to see that, these conversations are being elevated.
Yeah. Well, and when you think about something specific like water, I just think that it's where we need a diversity of voices in these conversations.
100%.
Anybody in California, and they're going to forget about water when we talk about how to take care of the environment, how we can farm in a climate smart way. But from the flip side, I'm here in the Mid-Atlantic. I'm in Delaware right now. I'm lived in Jersey and Philly, and the idea of doing urban agriculture at scale in a way that can grow leafy greens or berries or herbs really close to the urban areas that are on the I-95 corridor close to where I live, I think that's really appealing. And I if you could do a really great job growing something with a limited number of inputs and diesel in California, and then you put it on a truck halfway across all the way across the country, there's something to be said for those food miles too. Trust me, we need producers in California to continue serving me here in Delaware, and
Absolutely,
I'm all the better. But if we can add to that food mix with things that are coming from very close by that we just don't have the land to do in a traditional field, I think it makes sense. I just don't.
It's inevitable, right? It's inevitable.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think that's a big thing. It's inevitable. I mean, you have a lack of water in California. You're in, things, a down current economy forces innovation, lack of water, forcing innovation, right? Climate issues, forcing innovation. It's all a part of that process. And I think it's important that we start to embrace it. And again, look, not all technology is good. I'll be the first one to admit it. There's some shit going on out there that scares people, right? Scares me. It's like, really? That's a little bit aggressive, but there's a lot of really things that are positive. And when you look at climate smart agriculture, it's hard to look away from it and think that it's some bad, evil thing. And and when it comes, I think, to the organic industry, especially, we need to be embracing this, not running from it. And that's what I see a lot of us doing is a lot of folks are running from this technology because they are caught up in this narrative of it's got to be this or it's nothing. And it's dangerous because I just want to feed as many people as we can good, clean, organic food. Bottom line, that's the premise for me, and try to do better for the planet.
Well, and you mentioned the climate smart agriculture. We're the recipient, IFPA is the recipient of a climate smart, one of the partnerships for climate smart agriculture grants from USDA.
Yeah.
And, Dr. Max can get into the nitty gritty with that. But a big part of it is, we're seeing where we can take climate smart agricultural practices, apply them in our fields. We'll be using that money to go to producers to defray the cost of them implementing these practices. But we've got, in this industry, in the produce industry, we've got this balance of what's really challenging for us can also be our opportunity as well. It's challenging that we have this unique set of circumstances with the diverse regions and commodities that we're growing, where it's not just, one kind of weather in one part of the country. It's all diverse, and there's a ton of investment dollars going into row crops. Well, where can we learn from them? Where can we take the unique, and it's not going to translate perfectly. And that's part of the spirit. Like I said, Dr. Max has the fine details, but part of the spirit is where can we take these ideas for how to do better and how to do a better job, and in a way that's productive, that can lift us up while taking care of the climate. How can we apply that in our fields? And it's so much is right out there. It also reflective of Vani Estes, there was a technology incubator that we were working, and it's the same idea. Where can we take these ideas that may have started and generated outside of the produce industry? How can we bring it in? It's an incredible opportunity when there's investment there. We've got to tweak it. We've got to take those who know in our industry to make it right, but it's out there waiting for us. And I think it's exciting. I think that's something to be enthused about, and to say there's blue sky in this kind of activity.
Yeah, I totally agree. And something I'm excited about, it's what these folks are doing today that's going to be used in 5 years that I'm excited about. It's like what they're learning that's going to benefit us as a whole 5 years from now. I think it's just so important that we remember that, that innovation takes time, innovation takes money, it takes investment. It takes retailers saying we want to be a part of this. It takes retailers saying why we want to be a part of this, helping educate consumers. I mean, it's a process that everybody needs to buy into to keep food on the shelves, because that what if factor of supply. I mean, I think the war in Ukraine, you take a look at what it's done to food prices because of the fertilizer, some of the things that not necessarily so much affecting us here, but certainly affecting other parts of this world. Those are things to be mindful of. Food security, food insecurity are conversations we don't have enough of, especially when it comes around food insecurity, because a country that's food insecure has a huge security problem. And, it's important that we lean into that as a country and recognize that these things that may not be perfect today when it comes to this type of agriculture may not be perfect, may not be doing everything we need it to do. Maybe it will, maybe it won't, but we got to buy into it. We got to believe in it, because we just don't know what the future is going to hold. And this is going to be a part of that future for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, you think about food insecurity, and I still think it's about our ability to get food to the people, to get it at a price that they can afford. These are all arguments for why producing food at scale has got to be a part of the equation. As long as we're thinking about that diet and nutrition and health part of the equation, I've got to reference the White House conference on nutrition that happened, and the role that it just shows, again, so much opportunity for our industry to step up. And really glad for Kathy and Molly Van Loo's leadership in that space, talking about our moonshot. There's 8 priorities that we've got for how we can really address hunger and diet related disease in this country. And I think it's clear that a lot of that goes hand in hand. Where there are people that can't eat, there's an availability of things that are not, it's not just a lack of calories, it's also a lack of good calories, of meaningful nutrition that's going in their diet. And who better than the produce industry to rise up with that? So
well look, the produce, you take a look at produce as a whole in the grocery store, what it's about, the experience that it provides people, right? You can touch and feel your fruit. You can decide what smells good, what doesn't smell good. Then you throw organics in the mix where people are now shopping because it's got some connectivity to them, whether it's a morals or values play. They believe it's something more. They're making a contribution in a way that they can use their dollars to do that. I think it's incredibly powerful, and we need to be leaning into that. We need to be increasing these conversations, and working to drive positive consumption, right? It's such an important part of, to your point about supply chain, driving consumption. Again, get them to eat the apple, convince them to eat the organic one, right? There's kind of the mantra that I go by. But, an issue that I really believe in, and something that we keep bringing up on this platform and keep talking with folks about, is consumption and how to drive consumption, right? You drive consumption, you eliminate food waste in some ways. So it's always front of mind here. Can you talk a little bit about what you guys are doing about consumption, here and abroad through the platform of IFPA?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, and I love, again, I'm really impressed by the work that Kathy and Molly Van Loo have done on the policy side. I mean, that's consumption. We talk about supply chain being all encompassing. Consumption is going to take the cake there, but there's so many facets to it. So I think that where that White House conference and the nutrition work as the policy end, I still think that the part that we cracked through in a big way, that I'm so policy focused, but the events bring people together to keep it flowing to retail in a way that's gonna words that we used in the event space when I was more there, excite and delight.
Right.
That's what we want to do at the events as event providers, but that's something that we've got to keep doing. We're not going to win the war to get into the shopping cart by telling people that it's nutritious. And the nutrition people know that too. It's about finding opportunities to break through at retail. I feel like you should be telling me about that, but you'll find those opportunities to break through at retail and really stand out and make consumers want to come back for more. When I started at the association, Brian Silverman gave the State of the Industry one of my first years on staff, and he was talking about flavor. And I'm sitting here as some young guy new to the industry, and I thought, flavor, like, I don't know, we grow it and then we sell it. Like, what do we have to do with flavor?
Mm-hmm.
As an industry, we have the opportunity to wow people with flavor. I have a bowl of seeded grapes here, which I will not delight you with watching me eat right now.
Thank you.
But, yeah. It's that as a former grape salesman. I have a delicious Thompson seedless, and that's great. And then I bite into a Concord grape, and it's like, where am I? I'm in Concord, Mass. It's just transformative. It's
Sure.
something that's a part of it. So I think making those breakthroughs at retail and bring the supply chain, doing even something simple like flavor, having the breeders in the room, having the shippers in the room, bring together the whole supply chain has an impact on that, how we cut through to consumers, build that experience up so that they're coming back again and again and spending more time and dollars, frankly, in the produce section. Say the other part is where we lean in on culture. And part of the way that we've done that, I think about our activations at South by Southwest, and what we call there, and what we're extending beyond that space, the Joy of Fresh, and finding ways to, we did Joy of Fresh at the Washington conference and brought the Joy of Fresh to Capitol Hill as well. Taking these opportunities to influence culture and to influence the way the conversation around fresh food and eating and experiencing the joy of fresh. That's another place where we're leaning in that adds to the consumption overall, but it's about reinforcing attitudes on produce being exciting and vibrant and sexy and delicious. So I think that's it's almost hard to nail down the consumption equation because there's so many facets to it, but I guess that's, at the end of the day, breaking through to retail and having a good consumer experience is what's going to really keep us moving in the right direction.
Oh, it's 100%. And, flavor is everything. And look, there's a lot of things that are grown to just ship, not necessarily eat. And that doesn't necessarily win the day. I understand why. I get the yield. I get all the things that these guys, that the growers are facing. the challenges that they have, the pressure that's put back on them to figure out how to make something cheaper, which in my opinion, food shouldn't be the conversation based around cheap. Food should be a conversation based about how we're going to, do it right and how we're going to make it nutritious and, to your point, flavorful. Because, you have a crappy cherry tomato and you try to serve it to a kid, you're out, right? And that's a one and done experience. But if you can get one that's got some decent flavor, that's you can have a customer for life. And I think we've got to be mindful of that.
Yeah, you talk about cherry tomatoes. I have a 2-year-old little boy who will walk out into our garden, which is 2 4x4 plots, so big time production. And he will eat, this little guy, and he'll pick, 15 cherry tomatoes off the plant and eat them. When I'm a product. I said I was a product of Jersey Fresh, of local promotion and of imported produce. And when I talk to my friends outside the produce industry and they want to know, like, what's the trick? How am I going to get the best flavored stuff? Well, what's great is when I can tell them, hey, the best deals and the best flavor, it's not from, it's not just local. It's not just imports or something. It's in the heart of the season when it goes on deal because, they're flooded with grapes because it was the right time to pick them and the right time to ship them. And those cherry tomatoes, it's the right time to eat them. But I think, part of that equation for me and the way IFPA approaches things and the way that we see things expressing themselves at retail is having that diversity, having it represented. Again, it's such a complicated food system. We can't have one thing rise the occasion or, throughout the winter here in the East Coast, we're going to be eating potatoes and apples and carrots. And I want all of them and I want to eat them all winter, but I know that my 2-year-old, my 4-year-old are going to want berries too. And that's part of the way consumer expectations roll.
Yeah, for 100%. Let's shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit more about some of the work that you guys are doing. One area that I know is a hot button topic that continues to drag on. And that's a topic around, workforce and labor and even immigration to put into that topic, right? And I mean, it is it's to me, after all of these years of listening and hearing and posturing and the finger pointing and this and that, I'm shocked we just can't even, I don't know. It's like we can't even try to get it wrong to try to get it right. We just don't get anything done, period. So talk to me a little bit about, and look, this has been a problem that you guys have been dealing with for a long time. So this isn't like something you just flipped over a page and, oh, this is our topic of the day. But talk a little bit about what you guys are doing at IFPA about that topic and its importance to you guys.
My colleague John Holly leads a lot of our policy efforts in this space, and aside from soil or no soil, I think it's about the most contentious thing that can possibly be discussed on that squad. I guess soil or no soil probably pales in comparison, but as
depends on who you ask.
An organics guy, it's top of mind. The energy and excitement and momentum after we have the Farm Workforce Modernization Act passed in the House and bipartisan discussions talking about that in the Senate, it's real. And it's something where there's excitement behind it, cautious optimism. Like I said, John Holly is tireless in keeping on this and keeping the focus in the Senate and telling them, ag labor is something that we need. That is essential. There's no G.T. Thompson, the ranking member in the House, calls it essential labor. We just can't it's an intractable problem that we've got to change. But like you said, it's contentious and we're in an election year, and that puts the squeeze on things in a number of ways, really trying to get something in the Senate before the end of the session. So still a lot of push. We're optimistic is strong because there's challenges, but we're getting creative too. So we're part of the Alliance for New Immigration Consensus, and I think coming from the Produce Association background, I tend to think of these alliances where we're pulling together the regional groups, and when we would work together back in the day with CPMA and United as PMA, it's a lot different in the DC space. And this Alliance for New Immigration Consensus is working with a broad scope of people, from business leaders inside and outside of ag, even faith leaders, so that you're showing a diverse group of people who are saying, hey, we want to push forward on this issue. It's not just affecting one corner of the population. So I think that the fine point that I put on it is that we're tireless. We're dedicated, we're going to keep pushing, and there's still room for optimism, even when it's been going on this long. And we've got people talking in the Senate on both sides of the aisle. So I think that's where we're, again, that class optimist is peeking out.
You're an optimist, baby. You're an optimist.
Hey, we've got to lift each other up and keep it moving. So
Well,
again,
we do.
John Holland can't say enough about how he's putting a good nuanced approach on it.
Yeah, no, look, you're 100% right. We've got to, I look at it like we just get something done and let us figure out what you did. Right. I mean, because I think that's the way this industry adapts to everything. Right. Because look, you're an industry that adapts on a daily basis to what Mother Nature throws at you. Bottom line. So this is like, in some ways, not that big of a deal when you think about Mother Nature being the one that you're really competing with in a lot of ways every day and working with every day. So I think it's important, though, that we get to the point of getting some resolution around this and, you know, and get involved. You're right. It's a political issue. People don't want to touch it. They're afraid to touch it. They feel like it divides them. It puts them in a bad light. It puts them in a good light. I mean, it's just nuts. I mean, again, it's just about how do we win the day and better, you know, our country? How do we do it? How are we going to make it, you know, a better place for all of us? And it's just about tackling issues like this. You know, one of the big things too that you guys are involved in, and I don't think people necessarily get, people don't really know too much about the Farm Bill, right? They know what it is. Oh yeah, it's the Farm Bill. But they don't recognize the work that has to go in. I mean, it is not 6-7 people sitting around going, okay, let's write a farm bill. You're talking about thousands of people involved in a farm bill. It's thousands of pages. It comes from all kinds of things that are involved in the farm bill, whether it's forestry to agriculture, rural development. There's a lot of things that the USDA touches. So talk a little bit about, you know, what you guys are doing with the farm bill, if you wouldn't mind, and maybe some of what your priority issues are or what your strategy is going to be going into it. Because come January, you know, right after the first of the year, that thing goes full bore and it's off to the races.
Oh yeah, and it's been glad to say, been a focus, you know, through the summer and before for IFPA. A lot of that work is done through the Specialty Crop Farm Bill Alliance. So that's a group that encompasses, you know, talk about a different approach. That is, you know, more the alliance of like-minded, but really great representation from across the fresh produce industry. And a lot of this, you know, it's about how we protect the investments that Congress has made in produce. One of the, you know, enlightening moments for me is seeing some of the other groups that are trying to come in and say, oh, we're a specialty crop. We need to have some of that specialty crop money flowing our way. All the way to decorative stone was one of the more interesting ones that I've seen enter that space. But I think that's part of it, is taking a look at the programs that are out there that we've gotten that support innovation, research, as well as, you know, protecting our farmers through a number of programs that are risk management focused, but looking at ways that we can work with Congress to remind them of the impact of this industry, of the jobs and economic impact, and you know, really pushing to maintain and increase where possible the funding that comes to our growers through those programs. So yeah, it's a huge lift. The individual titles, you know, with obviously there's a huge focus on nutrition. There is a title that spends a lot of time on organics, and we do have the opportunity there to push not just the funding, but also to address some of the concerns that we have with the structure, and say, you know, we need to make sure that there's representation in the stakeholder relationships from our people, and also from the scientific background, and say, you know, we've got to have technical expertise when we're moving from a recommendation from NOSB that's got limited scientists on that board, and it's got limited grower. It's a 15-person panel. It's great. It's essential. It's a huge part of the process, but it can't be the only part. And that's, you know, that is the kind of thing that beyond the funding, where we're able to voice. And I mean, I think that's reflective not just of this farm bill conversation, but the previous one, where we're able to to weigh in. Those things that take an act of Congress. We're not going to get a standalone bill that says, how many votes do you need on an NOSB proposal? But that's the type of thing, at least in the last farm bill, that we were able to get some attention to.
Thanks for joining the Todd-versation. And now, a word from our sponsor.
Hi, this is Nelia Alamo at Calavo. Thanks for listening to Todd-versations. At Calavo, we are the family of fresh. For almost 100 years, our passion has been bringing delicious and nutritious food to your table. From tasty, wholesome produce to our freshly prepared foods, Calavo is a global leader in the finest quality produce and a pioneer of healthy, fresh-cut fruits, vegetables, and prepared foods. Whether it's our farm-fresh avocados, tomatoes, Hawaiian papayas, or chef-inspired solutions including fresh-cut fruits, veggies, guacamole, and much more, Calavo takes pride in delivering our fabulously fresh products every day. It's our promise from our foodie family to yours. Check us out at calavo.com and learn why we are excited about your fresh possibilities ahead.
That's good. No, look, it's a big process. And, when you think about it, getting involved in the farm bill, knowing what the views are of your representative, because not every you take a look around the map of this there's a lot of representatives in Congress that have no ag in their districts, are very limited ag. And so, and they're making ag decisions. So you've got to make sure that, again, this is one of those things that the beauty of the process that we have in this country is that we can participate in the process, right? All through. And I think it's something that we don't do enough of it. We come down to like, well, somebody did that heavy lifting for me, right? Much like what I think some consumers think when they look at the retail, like, oh, they're doing the heavy lifting for me. I don't need to think about stuff, right? It's the same thing. But we've got to be a part of this in order to make changes that are going to be for the, for the good of all of us to make the ball go down the field. So I think it's important. So I appreciate the work you guys do on that. It's a big job. The Farm Bill is a massive, massive undertaking.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. You talk about the process and there's definitely friends of mine who hear that my role is as a lobbyist now, and they hear lobbying and think it's a 4-letter word. And you're right. Not every congressman is a farmer as well. There are some that are, and that's great. And we're glad to have them representing us many times on the agriculture committees, but
sure,
we look at the way we weigh in on the process. I especially when things move from the legislation into the regulation, Congress they're not able to write a bill on the details of agriculture without input from the farmers. I mean, that's
100%
essential. That's it's the way we're built. It's not their full job to know everything about every minute part of the process. So, it's interesting seeing the places where, again, I'm still green behind the ears when it comes to the government relations piece and leaning in there, but it's a lot like association membership, which is where I do have more time. That it's about taking the voices of the people that are in this day in and day out and lifting up those voices. So
yeah, for sure.
Got that opportunity.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with you. Well, look, you guys got, you guys are coming, pulling the curtain back. Orlando show coming up. First one in a while. I'm sure everybody's stoked. I'm sure everybody's getting pumped up about, the road trip, getting back into the Orange County Convention Center, and talk a little bit about what people should be expecting, what's going on, the whole 9 yards. I don't know, say whatever the hell you want.
And where to begin? I'm pumped. I don't think I need to show it off here, but before we got on camera, I showed you my
you got your CMA shirt,
2019 throwback shirt. I'm a believer in this show and what we can do when we get together. And I say this show, obviously, we haven't had something like this in a few years, and that's only building up the pressure cooker that is the excitement of the produce industry. But I can remember, I brought my parents to Fresh Summit years ago. And I remember telling them beforehand that they came to New Orleans. It's not like another trade show. It's the touch, the feel, the smell, the senses are all firing on all cylinders. And when it comes to the global show this year, I like to call it the big show. When we get to the big show this year, there's going to be a lot that's familiar, but it's something new. It's just like IFPA is a new animal. This is a new animal. And talking with Kathy about it recently, the way she's been relating it is that it's not just about showing up, it's about how you show out. It's about coming here and we're getting together so that we can take the industry to the world. So we can get out afterwards. We can go to Capitol Hill. We can go to your consumers. We can go to the places where we show up and go bigger and go smarter and go with those connections that we've made and those ideas that have come about. There are things that are going to happen. I mean, I told you I want to stick away from the nitty gritty if I can on this because I'm not the show guy anymore. But looking at what the show team is doing differently, that I'm really excited about as a guy who just has poured hundreds, thousands of hours into produce conventions and planning. I spent a long time working on the business service providers for PMA and trying to build up that group. It's a surprisingly big part of the membership. They've been a big part of the show. I always say, you bring the growers and the retailers, everybody in the middle in the supply chain wants to be at the party too. Sure. Well, those guys are getting a little extra love this year. We're opening the show floor for that section specifically earlier on Thursday afternoon. And what I love about that is that that's the opportunity for the growers to say, hey, we have dedicated time now. We don't have to fly from this packaging provider to this transportations guy to this logistics to this technology provider. You can go spend some dedicated time, see all of them. Another thing I'm really excited about, a lot of like quick hit, choose your own adventure education. You can and cover a lot of ground quickly. We've got to make good use of people's time when they're there. And that's part of it. There will be an organic session as a part of that. I'll lead a discussion about, getting a little bit of a different perspective on the regulations with a certifier and saying, all right, let's lay it out, the good, the bad, and the ugly, because there's a lot coming up. And there's a lot, we can't be late to that party because decisions are being made that's going to really affect the way that we go to market. So a lot to happen at the big show. Organics will be there. I'm excited about that.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's exciting. Well, I know, looking forward to going to Orlando. It's like my 9,000th time I've been to Orlando. But yeah, it's
unless you're going to see Mickey Mouse, man, there's what else do you need to do in Orlando? You put the miles in on the show floor.
Well, my standard answer to that would be to leave Orlando, but I won't say that out loud.
Well, there's a time for that. When you leave Orlando, I want your brain to be busting with ideas.
There you go.
You need to be sore. Here we go. I'm getting ready right now. Got my Dr. Scholl's here. I'm going to be getting ready.
Going hard. I love it. You're going hard in the paint.
My miles.
I love it. Anything exciting coming up besides, obviously the show is one thing, but anything new and exciting for 2023 for IFPA to be mindful of or to be thinking about?
I think there's some things that we'll have to hold on until it's the right time to bring it to light. But I think from a 30,000 foot standpoint, what we're excited about is year two. Let's have that happy birthday party for IFPA and let's get out of the baby blues and really hit our stride. Baby blues is the wrong thing. I think it's been an incredible first year so far. But I just think the way our leadership is set with Kathy and I think Lauren Scott, I worked for her for a while when I was in membership and love the inspirational take that she brings to conversations. It's about accelerating. Like I said, I think we've got a first year to be really proud of. I think we answered the call, and now it's what, and it's about keeping the pedal down and about moving quickly, leveraging those key events, but also, we've had a year, those of us who were spending time in DC to get people familiar with the new name. Well, it's about keeping pushing on those issues as well. So
sure. Well,
year two is where it's going to light up.
Well, you make a really good point. And it's not like, you guys just put the shingle out front and we're starting with this little tiny ma and pa thing. Right. You've put the shingle out front and you've got this massive organization that's already in the water. Essentially, it's, two separate boats coming together and now you're trying to figure out how to paddle both. It was an undertaking. So I can imagine that the first few months had to just be freaking chaos in a lot of ways, just trying to figure out what's next and how it's going to move forward. That'd be a lot to it. It was a big undertaking. There's no doubt.
Absolutely a big undertaking. I mean, there was more runway than the industry got to see. You know, the board and then the staff had a little while to start figuring things out. That, like I said, this time last year, you know, I already felt like I was a part of the team in DC and government relations, and I hadn't even inherited this giant title officially yet. So I mean, I've been a part of the Robert Gunther's GR team, you know, almost a year and a half, not quite, I guess, but you know, so we've been working at it for a while. But I when it first came about, and I sat with Lauren, who is, you know, she's our strategy person, but she's got more marketing sense than most people you'll ever meet. And I said, hey, you know, here's a marketing opportunity. We are brand new, and we have so much history. And let's celebrate the first birthday. Let's celebrate the 100 and whatever birthday it would have been for United, because we get to have our cake and eat it too in that scenario. We've got the best of both of those things.
I love it.
A clean slate with a strong foundation, and that's been exciting to be a part of.
I love it. Yeah, cool, dude. Totally cool. Thank you. Thanks for hanging out and sharing a little bit, man. Thanks for giving people a little bit of the, you know, what's going on, and get excited about the show, and obviously some of the things that are important that are out there, some topics to get people mindful of. And, you know, bottom line, it's about participation. That's the beauty of what you guys are about. I mean, you guys are just like working with the USDA or any other branch, you know, that we have in the government. It's like participate, find out, ask questions, get involved. It's terribly important that, you know, we come unified, we try to do something, we try to build a better place for everybody. Right. And that's what that's a big lift and a big undertaking. I commend you guys for what you've accomplished so far. And I'm sure that the future is going to be bright and full of some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, what we're doing is bringing people together, creating a vibrant future, and participation is huge in that. In my years with the association, the people that spend the most time with it are the people that get the most out of it. But I would just tell your listeners, you know, if you don't mind me plugging here, I'll see you at the show. But shoot, anybody that hears this, you want to know more about anything we talked about, hit me directly. Don't worry about that long last name, George S at freshproduce.com. Let's start the conversation there, and I'll get you the real experts in our deep roster of who can take care of you. But that's always been my thing. I don't know everything we do, but I know who knows. And
right.
That's the beauty of the association. So
I love it. We'll come back anytime, dude. Open invitation. We'd love to have you. And I'll see you shortly. And you know, I think it's great. Keep it up, brother. Let me know how to help.
Thanks. I'll see you at the show.
No doubt. Everybody, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out with us. We appreciate you. Don't forget, check us out on social media, TLC_Todd-versations. Like I always say, we're there because that's where the cool kids are. So that's where we hang out. We appreciate you very much. Thanks for everything that you do, and rating and reviewing and subscribing and all that fun stuff. We really do appreciate it. We appreciate where this platform is heading and the things that we're doing, the amount of people we're touching on a monthly basis. It's pretty special. So thanks to all of you for making it happen. We appreciate you. Take care. Remember, go inspire somebody today. It's terribly important. You can do it. It's not hard to do. Just say hi to somebody and you win the day. Thanks, everybody. Take care. We'll see you soon.